When you're scrolling through endless budget TV options, it's easy to convince yourself that a cheaper LED will do the job until you're watching the nighttime news and the colors look washed out, or you're gaming and the motion looks choppy, and you end up wishing you'd spent a little more. That regret is real, and it's why I paused before I even turned this 75-inch Samsung QLED on. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk through exactly what makes this model feel like a smarter buy, and where it might still leave you wishing you'd gone another way. First off, let's talk about the size. A 75-inch screen in a living room is a statement piece, but it also forces you to think about viewing distance, mounting options, and how the TV will blend with your decor. The AirSlim design Samsung touts really does keep the profile low enough that it doesn't dominate the wall, and the bezels are thin enough that you can sit a bit closer without the edges pulling your eyes away. I tested it in a room where the couch was about 8 feet away, the sweet spot for a 75-inch 4K set, and the picture filled my field of view without feeling overwhelming. If your sofa is much closer than 6 feet, you might start to see individual pixels, even with QLED's dense matrix, so measure your space before you commit. Now, the big promise of this TV is its over a billion colors that stay true, even in the brightest scenes. That's not just marketing fluff. In a side-by-side comparison with a mid-range LED, the Samsung kept its HDR highlights from blooming into a whitewash. I streamed a nature documentary that featured a sunrise over a snow-capped mountain, and the white stayed crisp while the reds of the sky stayed saturated. The quantum dot layer is doing the heavy lifting here, pushing color volume way beyond the typical 8-bit panel you'd find in a cheaper model. If you love content that leans heavily on vibrant palettes, think animated films, high-budget streaming series, or sports where team colors matter, you'll notice the difference straight away. Speaking of sports, the Q8F's motion handling is another spot where the price tag starts to make sense. Samsung's Q4 AI processor upscales and interpolates frames to smooth out fast-moving action. I put on a live soccer match and the ball stayed crisp as it zipped across the field, with virtually no motion blur. The same went for a fast-paced fighting game I tried in my bedroom. The frame rate felt stable, and the tear-free claim held up when I toggled the game mode. If you're a gamer or a sports fan who hates the smearing you see on budget screens, this is a genuine benefit. Audio is often an afterthought, but on a TV this size you end up relying on it more than you'd like unless you have a dedicated sound system. Samsung's built-in speakers are tuned for a broader soundstage than the tinny output you get from a cheap 75-inch LED. In a movie night test, dialogue was clear and the bass was present enough to feel immersive without turning the volume all the way up. Still, I wouldn't call it a substitute for a soundbar or a small home theater setup. If you're planning to sit at the back of the room or want that cinematic boom, you'll still need an external solution. One of the less talked about aspects is the smart platform. Samsung Vision AI integrates Alexa, and the interface gives you a world of content at your fingertips without needing a separate subscription. In practice, that means you can search for a show by voice, and the TV will pull it from whichever streaming app you have installed. The UI is responsive, and the remote's built-in microphone works well in a typical living room noise level. However, the system does pull data from multiple services to build its recommendation engine, which can feel a bit invasive if you're privacy concerned. There's no way to completely turn off the data collection without losing the convenience of voice search, so that's a trade-off to consider. Let's be honest about the price. This isn't a budget TV, and you'll see a noticeable jump from a 65-inch 4K LED that's a few $100s cheaper. The value isn't in the raw specs. The 4K resolution and HDR support are now commonplace, but in how those specs translate to everyday enjoyment. The combination of deep blacks, bright highlights, and stable motion makes movies feel cinematic, games feel fluid, and sports feel like you're in the stadium. If you watch a lot of high-quality streaming content, play on console or PC, and you have the space for a 75-inch screen, the Q8F's visual experience is where the money is earned. Who should walk away? If you primarily watch cable TV, use the set for occasional YouTube videos, or you live in a small apartment where a 75-inch panel would dominate the space, the extra quantum dot and AI processing are overkill. A solid 55 or